The story of Hephaestus and Athena. A love forged in fire. Complete story. In the bustling Olympus, where the gods indulged in unrestricted pleasures, one god suffered from the wretchedness of his life, Hephaestus, the god of the forge and fire, known to all as the ugly god. He felt terrible. This day was not a common one for him, on the contrary, it was one of the darkest he had experienced in a long time. Once again, as was his sad routine, his wife Aphrodite had been unfaithful. But this time, she had crossed all boundaries. Without a hint of consideration for Hephaestus's feelings, Aphrodite immersed herself in an orgy with all the male gods of Olympus, ignoring her husband, who perhaps was the only one who truly loved her. For Hephaestus, who looked at her with pure and sincere love, this act was a devastating betrayal. Hephaestus, the scorned husband, was the only one who truly saw her with genuine love, although now that feeling was barely present in his shattered heart. The only thing I feel when I see Aphrodite is love, well, at least that's what I felt a few years ago. Then came another blow for him, his wife's pregnancy with Aries. Hephaestus clenched his fists in anger every time he remembered those months, as he had cared for and treated her like a queen during her pregnancy, only to see her escape from his temple as soon as the baby was born. And it had been several weeks since he last saw her. With contained fury, Hephaestus watched the horizon, his face reflecting the mix of pain and resentment that flooded his being. When Eros came into the world, on the day of his birth, Aries, his own father, rejected and despised the child from the first breath he took. It seemed that Eros's talents leaned towards love rather than war, which ignited Aries's anger like an uncontrollable fire. He blamed Aphrodite, his lover, as the one responsible for the mistake he had fathered as a son. In the temple, Aries and Aphrodite burst into a dispute. The shouts, loaded with resentment and pain, echoed in the air as accusations flew between them. "Aphrodite, don't try to deceive me. That bastard is not my son," roared Aries, his rage overflowing in every word. Aphrodite, with tearful eyes that showed pain and surprise, desperately tried to defend herself. "What are you talking about, my love? Eros is our son, born from the eternal bond we share. How can you even doubt that?" Ares's hand moved swiftly with uncontrolled fury, brutally striking Aphrodite's delicate face and throwing her violently to the ground. The sound of the blow echoed in every corner of Olympus, and Aphrodite was in shock. She raised a trembling hand to her cheek, feeling the pain both physical and emotional, as tears began to flow in an uncontrollable torrent. Ares insisted on his assertion that Eros could not be his son. He vehemently refused to accept that he shared a drop of blood with him, no matter how many proofs were presented to him. "Aphrodite, don't lie to me," shouted Ares angrily. "Surely Eros is the son of that idiot of your husband, only he can father such disgraces. Don't try to compare him to me," roared the god of war with a fury that scared Aphrodite, his voice rumbling like threatening thunder. Aphrodite, with eyes full of tears, struggled to reason with her lover, her words laden with anguish and desperation. "My love, how can you say that? I would never allow my husband to come near me in that way, much less touch or kiss me as you do." Her voice trembled with the emotional burden she carried. In her heart, Ares' distrust wounded her deeply, and in her torment, she sought someone to blame. "It's all your fault, Hephaestus," she said to herself. With a severe look, Ares responded with disdain, "I don't care what you think or say. If you want to continue being with me, I order you to get rid of that bastard so you never see him again." His words were venomous, filled with resentment and shame towards the idea of having a son he considered useless. Trapped and without options, Aphrodite was forced to obey. Although a small flame of resistance flickered in her heart, Ares' dominant voice resonated too strongly in her mind. What purpose could a weak son like Eros serve? Would he not be more than a burden, a stain on the lineage of her lover? So, resigned to accept her lover's command, Aphrodite agreed to get rid of the little baby. "All right, my love, you're always right," murmured Aphrodite with her head down, hiding her pain behind a mask of submission, while her heart silently tore apart at Ares' cruel order. However, amidst her despair, there was a witness who observed in silence. It was Hephaestus, who had heard every word of the cruel conversation. Pain and anger burned fiercely in his chest, but instead of drowning him in darkness, it turned into an unyielding determination to do what was right. "I know well the pain of being rejected and unwanted for something beyond your control," Hephaestus muttered through clenched teeth, his voice resonating with deep bitterness, recalling the rejection he experienced from his own biological mother. He decided he would not allow another being to suffer that same pain. Determined to rescue little Eros from his tragic fate, Hephaestus devised a plan. Hephaestus devised a plan to rescue little Eros from the cruelty of his parents. He vowed to protect him with his life if necessary, ready to face any challenge to ensure the innocent child's well-being. Hours later, we see the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite, with her radiant golden hair, walking near the edge of Mount Olympus. In her hands, she tenderly carried a small bundle wrapped in a blanket, a newborn. With a voice choked by the various emotions she felt, she murmured, "I'm sorry, my sweet Eros. But you've heard your father. He doesn't want children who stain his name, and I can't risk losing his love for you." Her words, although cruel, could not hide the torment beating in her heart. Despite her determination, her beautiful blue eyes were flooded with tears that seemed endless. Inside, she battled between following her maternal instincts or yielding to the love of her life. "May you find peace in the Elysian fields, my little Eros," she murmured with a broken voice, feeling the overwhelming weight of her decision. Aphrodite walked slowly towards the edge of Mount Olympus, her demeanor seemingly indifferent, but the tears streaming from her eyes as she held her baby in her arms revealed the torment consuming her. The little one, oblivious to the imminent danger, smiled innocently and lovingly, his laughter echoing like a beacon of happiness amidst the approaching darkness. With palpable doubt, the goddess let her child fall into the abyss, surrendering him to an uncertain and dark fate. Every fiber of her being screamed in agony, pleading to stop the atrocious act and rescue her son, but she hardened her heart and turned her gaze away from the abyss, unable to bear the guilt she felt. She then headed to her temple with a heart shattered by what she had done. What Aphrodite did not know was that someone was waiting in the shadows, ready to save the helpless baby from his fall into the abyss. This being was a phoenix, a majestic creature forged by the god Hephaestus with the sole purpose of protecting the child his master desired. When there was no sign of Aphrodite, the phoenix emerged from the shadows and watched the child's fall. Without hesitation, it spread its powerful wings and dove to save the baby. In a blink that seemed like a flash of flames, the phoenix's talons gently closed around the fragile body of the baby, preventing him from falling further and saving his innocent life from death. With elegant and swift movements, the imposing bird soared into the air, determined to bring the baby to the temple of its lord, Hephaestus, where he would find safety. Each flap of the phoenix's wings created strong gusts of wind as it headed towards what seemed to be a volcano. From the height of my temple, my anxious eyes scanned the horizon, impatiently awaiting the arrival of one of my finest creations, the phoenix. In this risky plan to rescue little Eros from a cruel fate, every passing moment increased my unease. I feared that Aries and Aphrodite had discovered my plan and had carried out their grim intention to kill the baby. My heart pounded as I waited for the phoenix's return, praying that its mission had been successful. My fears dissipated when I spotted in the distance the majestic figure of my phoenix soaring through the sky. A sigh of relief escaped my lips as I saw it approaching, bringing with it the smiling child. A soft laugh escaped my mouth. "I will definitely care for you as if you were my own son." With each flap of the phoenix's wings, a wave of happiness washed over me, for I was about to fulfill one of my greatest dreams, becoming a father. Gently, the phoenix placed the baby in the tiny cradle I had prepared, a gesture that filled me with relief and gratitude. As I approached, I met the cheerful gaze of the little one, a spark of innocence shining amidst the darkness of those who nearly ended his life. Every inch of his being radiated the purity of love, something he probably inherited from Aphrodite. "Your domain is love, isn't it, little one?" I said with a smile, determined to raise him so he wouldn't follow in his mother's footsteps. Looking into his eyes, I felt a deep connection. In my mind, as I caressed my son's head, I said to myself, We were two souls who knew the rejection of our own mothers, thrown into the world without compassion. However, while one of us suffered almost his entire life from the hatred and rejection of everyone, the other was saved from his tragic end. In that moment, I knew that my destiny was linked to his, and I would do everything in my power to ensure that his life was different from mine. "Your life will not be like mine, I won't let you suffer," Hephaestus said tenderly as he held his son in his arms. Every word he spoke was imbued with love and determination. He would give him the same love that his adoptive mother had given him, and he would never leave him alone. "Now that I think about it, you need another name. It would be a problem if Aphrodite found out I saved you, right, little one?" I murmured, gazing tenderly at the baby. "Lucas." "No, that sounds too common." "Matteo." "Neither." Every name I proposed seemed inadequate for the little one, who grimaced or pouted at each suggestion. After a while of suggesting various names, the baby comically bit my finger. Hephaestus laughed, understanding the message. "Hee, all right, I get it. You don't like any of them? So, shall we stick with your original name?" The baby's smile was like a ray of light, and in his eyes, I found the confirmation that his original name was perfect just as it was. The baby responded with a tender smile and clapped enthusiastically, as if agreeing with my choice. His eyes radiated happiness, as if he understood that this name was perfect for him. "It seems you like that name," I exclaimed with excitement. "Then, from today, you will be Eros, my son, the heir to the forge." Every word that came out of my mouth was filled with joy and excitement, filling my heart with happiness. At that exact moment, in Aphrodite's temple, saturated with the intoxicating aroma of sweat and passion, Aries, the god of war, and his lover Aphrodite, the goddess of love, were immersed in an intimate moment. The air was charged with the burning energy of their lust, every whisper and touch filled with desire and longing. Aries broke the silence with a husky, serious voice, questioning his lover. "Aphrodite, did you do what I asked?" His tone made it clear he expected a specific answer, a confirmation that his wishes had been fulfilled without hesitation or question. The goddess, with hesitation in her voice, responded, "Yes, love, I did, but are you sure it's the right thing to do? This baby is the fruit of our love, we can still save him before he hits the ground." Her words revealed her internal conflict, her struggle between following her lover's orders and protecting her own child. However, Aries' voice left no room for doubt. "Yes, darling, I am sure of my decision," he declared firmly. "Now, come here and satisfy my desires," he added with a lust that filled the air of the temple. Aphrodite, bowing to Aries' will and wrapped in the passion of the moment, silently nodded and set about fulfilling her lover's desires. However, as she surrendered to carnal pleasures, a voice of guilt whispered deep within her, disturbing her. She did not know it yet, but karma always finds its way, whether you are mortal or a god, for every act of evil carries its own consequences. Ignoring a dark voice that conveyed fear, telling her, "Soon you will pay for all your sins," Aphrodite, was the message of that dark voice. Despite the latent fear, she let herself be carried away by pleasure, not thinking about the consequences. 1 year after the birth of Eros. It was a radiant day on Olympus, where sunlight filtered through the clouds, tinting the majestic celestial structures of Olympus with gold. However, in Hephaestus' temple, shaped like a volcano, the atmosphere was different, as a baby cried incessantly, breaking the silence of the great hall. After a while, Hephaestus entered his son's room. He was a colossal figure of 2 meters, whose footsteps echoed on the floor. His powerful arms gently enveloped little Eros as he tried to decipher the cause of his crying. "What's wrong, my little one?" he asked calmly, cradling the baby in his arms. Eros' incessant crying worried him. After a failed attempt to change his diaper and play with him, Hephaestus considered the possibility that Eros might be hungry. Carefully, he prepared a bottle, hoping to soothe his son's cries. Little Eros quickly devoured the bottle, and his crying subsided. Hephaestus looked at him tenderly, finding comfort in his presence. It was then that Eros began to babble. Hephaestus waited expectantly, his heart pounding. And then, like a gift from Olympus, Eros uttered his first word, Papa. Hephaestus' heart overflowed with emotion. "Can you say it again, son?" he asked with a trembling voice, unable to contain the happiness flooding his being. "Papa, Papa, Papa," Eros repeated, and each repetition was like a melody to Hephaestus. In that instant, he understood that nothing in the world could match the joy of being a father. However, the peace of that moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. Hephaestus felt a bit annoyed, wondering who could be disturbing his time with his son. When he opened the door, he found the serene figure of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, whose presence radiated warmth and friendship. She also had a kind smile on her face. Hephaestus felt nervous about Athena's sudden visit, as he had kept Eros' existence a secret, sharing the truth only with a few close friends like Helios and Hades. The unexpected arrival of the goddess could expose his secret and trigger unforeseen consequences. "Good day, Hephaestus, how are you?" Athena greeted with a friendly smile, though Hephaestus sensed a trace of nervousness in her words. "I am well, Athena, and you?" Hephaestus replied, trying to hide his own anxiety about the unexpected visit. Athena responded with a smile, "I am well, thank you." "Hey, Hephaestus, would you like to go on a picnic with me?" said the goddess of wisdom nervously. But before he could answer, a small child emerged from behind him, barely hidden behind his leg, sweetly repeating the word "Papa" over and over. The sudden appearance of the child puzzled Athena, who asked cautiously and a bit seriously, "Hephaestus, who is that child?" Hephaestus, feeling momentarily trapped, sought the right words to explain the situation. "Athena, I can explain," he replied with a mix of nervousness and determination. "I hope so," Athena replied seriously. It was then that Hephaestus told Athena how he had rescued Eros from his cruel fate and had taken care of him as if he were his own son. Upon hearing the story, Athena clenched her fist tightly, unable to contain her fury. The idea of a mother abandoning her own child in favor of worldly pleasures enraged her. A silver aura surrounded her, reflecting the fury she felt. How is it possible for a mother to act this way? Athena asked aloud, with a mix of disgust and consternation. Hephaestus placed his hand on Athena's shoulder, seeking to calm her growing fury. The goddess of wisdom, after a time of energetically criticizing Aphrodite, was surprised when little Eros approached her and extended his arms, uttering a word that left her completely blushing, "Mama." This unexpected declaration took both Hephaestus and Athena by surprise, and they looked at each other with a mix of surprise and the thought of what their lives together as a family might be like. They quickly looked away, both blushing at those thoughts. Meanwhile, Athena remained in shock, her cheeks burning with embarrassment at the situation she found herself in. The unexpected declaration from Eros stirred up a whirlwind of emotions, leaving Athena and Hephaestus engulfed in an awkward silence. Hephaestus attempted to ease the situation. "Come on, Athena, calm down. He's just a baby, he doesn't understand what he's saying." Athena, covering her face with her hand, wrestled internally, "What do I do? I can't help but imagine Hephaestus and me as husband and wife, with this little one as our son. Gods, what absurd thoughts," she thought, feeling the blush creeping up her cheeks. "Athena, are you all right?" the god asked, noticing the blush on the goddess's face. Yes, why shouldn't I be?" Athena replied, trying to mask her embarrassment behind a nervous laugh. "Well, would you mind if we took little Eros with us when we go out? I don't have anyone to leave him with, and I don't like leaving him with just anyone." "Of course, that's fine. I would love to get to know him better," the goddess said with a genuine smile. Hephaestus was relieved. "Perfect. How about we plan our outing for next week?" "Yes, that sounds good, Hephaestus. Then I'll see you later," Athena responded, feeling a slight pang as she parted from what had been her first and only love. But just as Athena was about to leave, little Eros began to whimper. "Mommy," Eros said softly, clinging desperately to Athena's figure. The scene deeply moved both Athena and Hephaestus, who hadn't expected such a display of affection from the little one. It seemed Eros had quickly grown attached to Athena. "It seems he's taken quite a liking to you," Hephaestus murmured with a sympathetic smile, though his voice betrayed a hint of sadness. He knew it was unlikely for any woman or goddess to assume the role of a mother to his son, let alone love him for his appearance. Athena simply nodded in silence, moved by the little one's reaction. As she watched him, she felt a deep connection with him. An inner voice told her she couldn't leave him, that he needed her. It was her duty to protect him. For the first time in her life, Athena experienced a unique and powerful feeling, reserved for women who brought life into the world, maternal love. It was a love that surpassed any other known feeling, an unbreakable bond that connected her to Eros in a way she couldn't explain. Athena looked sadly at the little one and then at Hephaestus. "I can't just leave him like this. Hephaestus, I think I should stay a little longer, at least until he calms down," the goddess expressed tenderly. Hephaestus nodded with a sincere smile. "I agree. If that's how you feel, I'd be happy for you to stay," he replied kindly. Athena bent down to be at eye level with Eros and gently stroked his head, feeling a love that transcended any other. Hephaestus, noticing the affection Athena showed towards Eros, decided to make an unexpected proposal. "Athena, I know it's a bit sudden, but would you like to stay the night in my temple? I have several rooms available," the god said with a hint of shyness, feeling a slight nervousness over his unexpected invitation. Surprise lit up Athena's face. "Of course, I would love to stay. It will be great to help you take care of Eros," the goddess replied with enthusiasm and a sincere smile. Hephaestus smiled even more at Athena's positive response. "Perfect. How about you take care of Eros while I prepare dinner," he suggested kindly. The goddess of wisdom nodded and took little Eros into her arms. "Hee, you and I will have fun while your father prepares the food. What do you think, little one?" she said sweetly to the baby, noticing how his eyes sparkled with the same affection she held for his father. Little Eros responded with a radiant smile, feeling comfortable and happy in the arms of this kind woman. His eyes shone with a mixture of excitement and affection, as this woman conveyed the same warm feeling as his father. 2 years have passed since that night. Now we find ourselves in a late afternoon in the kitchen of a volcano-shaped temple, where a towering and good-natured man was preparing what seemed to be an exquisite dinner, a succulent roast for him and his friend. That man was Hephaestus, radiating genuine joy. In recent months, Hephaestus had experienced a deep and unique feeling for his friend Athena, a feeling he had never felt for anyone else. Not even his wife Aphrodite had been able to awaken something so pure and special in him. And as Aphrodite continued to betray him with others, his love for her faded, becoming barely a spark about to extinguish. But it was her last act of cruelty in abandoning their son to his fate that finally annihilated any vestige of love in Hephaestus' heart. Athena's arrival in his life, on the other hand, had brought a new light. Her presence was a balm that healed the deep wounds Aphrodite had left. As Hephaestus cooked, his thoughts turned to the goddess of wisdom and his son Eros, who were in the living room laughing and playing. The image of them together filled his heart with a happiness he had never known before. "Athena," exclaimed Hephaestus from the kitchen. "Dinner is ready," he added, his voice reflecting the happiness he felt. "Coming, Hege," responded Athena from the living room, lovingly holding little Eros, who clung to her with a radiant smile. After enjoying the delicious dinner prepared by the god, Athena fed the little one with a bottle. As the night progressed, the two continued to talk about life and events in Olympus. However, the atmosphere tensed slightly when Athena broached a delicate topic. "Hege, how are things with Aphrodite?" she asked, trying to learn more about her friend's relationship. Hephaestus sighed, his gaze dropping to the floor. "Well, not very good. In fact, not good at all. It's been a year since I last saw her, and I wouldn't even want to see her anymore. All she knows how to do is ask for expensive gifts, humiliate me, and make me feel bad," he confessed sadly. Athena, with a gesture of compassion, took Hephaestus' hand to show her unconditional support. Don't worry about Aphrodite, Hege. You're a treasure. You have a kind heart, you're gentle, and a true friend. You're the only one in Olympus who remains faithful, and that's admirable. Besides, you're an exceptional father. Taking care of a child who is not of your blood as if he were your own is admirable, Athena expressed sincerely, conveying all her affection and comfort to her friend. Do you really think that of me? Hephaestus asked, timidly raising his gaze as a slight smile formed on his lips, touched by his friend's warm words. Of course, Hege. You're an extraordinary person, Athena responded warmly, gently squeezing the god's hand with tenderness, which caused a slight blush to rise to his cheeks. Sorry, Hege, it's not what you think, Athena hurriedly said, quickly releasing his hand. Though she had felt a pleasant spark at the touch, embarrassment made her recoil. No worries, Athena, Hephaestus responded with a mix of nervousness and evident affection in his voice, his own cheeks turning red. After that exchange of emotions, the atmosphere turned uncomfortable, laden with a tension neither could ignore. Oh, look at the time. I think it's time we head to bed, don't you think? Hephaestus suggested, trying to lighten the heaviness of the moment. Yeah, sure. You're right, Athena nodded, attempting to regain her composure. It's been a long day, and Eros needs rest. Athena handed the sleeping little Eros to his father, as the baby was already asleep, for him to take him to his crib. Then, Hephaestus escorted Athena to her room before retiring to his own. Athena had been living with Hephaestus for a good while now, and as she entered her room, she approached a wall and began to gently tap her head against it in a gesture of frustration and self-reproach. No, no, no. I ruined everything. Everything was perfect, and the atmosphere was romantic. I don't know why I mentioned Aphrodite. I'm such a fool. For the love of the gods, I'm the goddess of wisdom, and I messed it up, lamented the goddess before collapsing exhausted onto the bed, her heart filled with remorse. As she looked at the wall, her eyes met a portrait of herself, Hephaestus, and Eros, all three smiling. The scene brought a faint smile to her face, and a glimmer of hope illuminated her gaze. Maybe, after all is not lost. I need to apologize to him, the goddess murmured, determined to make amends for her mistakes. And she was determined not to let Aphrodite continue hurting the man she cherished with all her heart. In Hephaestus' room, the god lay face down on the bed, his posture reflecting the heaviness of his heart. Why can't I ever do anything right, he lamented quietly. This was the first breakthrough I've had with Athena, and I messed it up. What should I do, he murmured wearily, immersed in self-criticism and doubt. With each passing day, Hephaestus' feelings for Athena grew stronger, a flame that burned increasingly fiercely in his chest. He knew he was falling in love with her, and that filled him with a mix of happiness and fear. Hephaestus sighed, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions enveloping him. I should go to her room to apologize. But then again, maybe not, it might be weird. I don't want her to misinterpret it, he whispered to himself. Finally, he decided, it's better to wait until tomorrow. With that thought, he let sleep calm his worries. About to fall asleep, Hephaestus heard a soft knock-knock on his bedroom door. The creaking of the door put him on edge, reminding him of the cruel pranks some gods, including his own brothers, used to play on him, like tying him up or throwing unpleasant things at him, or even worse things he didn't want to remember. Prepared for anything, he kept his eyes closed, tense and alert. However, what happened next surprised him deeply. He felt a presence approach and then climb onto his bed. A soft sensation settled on his chest, leaving him completely bewildered. Opening his eyes, he saw Athena, blushing to the ears, atop him. Hephaestus barely managed to articulate a hello, his voice barely a whisper laden with confusion, but also with an emotion he found hard to name. Athena, visibly embarrassed, hid her face in her friend's chest to conceal her blush. Still, she timidly responded with another hello. A brief silence enveloped the room, broken by Hephaestus's gentle and reassuring laughter. Hee, that's the shortest response I've ever heard from the goddess of wisdom, he joked affectionately, trying to ease the tension of the moment. "Silly," whispered Athena, but the smile accompanying her words revealed the relief she felt after her friend's joke. The atmosphere between them grew lighter, and now it was an intimate moment where nothing else mattered but them. Looking up, Athena's silver eyes met Hephaestus's ruby eyes. "Sleep well," Athena wished him with a sincere smile. Instinctively, Hephaestus wrapped his arms around Athena, who, despite her blush, nestled into his chest, enjoying the comforting embrace. That night became a precious moment for both of them. Although they did not share a marital bond, the connection and affection that bound them made them seem more than friends, almost like a couple. Life, always full of surprises, had given them that moment of intimacy and comfort, so deserved for someone like Hephaestus, who had faced so many adversities and pain throughout his life. And on that night, under the starry mantle of Olympus, he found solace for enduring so much pain. Several days later, after a meeting on Olympus, Aphrodite left accompanied by the other gods and goddesses, but something caught her attention. She observed Hephaestus, her husband, who was very close to Athena, whom she used to call Bookworm. She could see smiles on both of their faces as they talked to each other. A shiver ran down her spine, overwhelming her with a mixture of jealousy and concern. What were those two plotting? Why did Hephaestus seem more interested in Athena than in her? And what was even more painful, why had so much time passed without Hephaestus showing her any affection? Did he no longer care? These questions tormented her, clouding her mind like unsettling shadows. Could it be that Hephaestus sought solace in Athena's arms? The idea was too painful to accept. But the seed of doubt had already been planted, growing inside her like poisonous ivy. If she had known what the future held for her, she would have acted differently, would have been a better wife. But unfortunately, that was not the case, and she would face the consequences in the future. When I looked again, they were no longer there. The absence of Hephaestus and Athena left me with a bitter taste in my soul, as if suddenly I found myself alone in the midst of a storm. I tried to clear my mind, push away the gloomy thoughts, but it was like fighting against a raging tide. What does it matter what Hephaestus does? I repeated to myself, trying to convince myself it didn't affect me. After all, he's not exactly a god of beauty, right? I better focus on Aries, my true love. With a smile on my lips, I decided to seek out my lover, eager to find comfort in his strong and passionate embrace, the one I loved so much and who also loved me. I'll go see Aries, surely he has time for me, I murmured to myself, trying to convince myself I wasn't worried about my husband's affairs. I bought new lingerie, imagining how Aries would like to see me in it. He'll surely love it, I thought with a mix of excitement and desire as I headed towards my temple with brisk steps. But upon arrival, he was nowhere to be found. I don't see Aries anywhere. His absence puzzled me, and I confess, it worried me more than I was willing to admit. I tried to calm myself. But where could Aries be? I haven't seen him around here in almost a week, I muttered to myself, feeling a knot in my stomach. Meanwhile, in Ares' temple, the god could be seen on a huge bed, and surrounded by his personal servants, whose moans of pleasure filled the room. The atmosphere was charged with passion and ecstasy, as if time had stopped in a moment of intense surrender. Servant 1, Aries Sama, are you satisfied or do you want more? Asked the first servant, her voice trembling with excitement as she caressed the muscular body of the god. Servant 2, yes, Aries Sama, did you like how we made love all week? Inquired the second, her eyes gleaming with desire as she lay beside him. Aries, hee, it's been over 1,000 years since I last experienced that intensity. You're truly experts at this. Replied the god with a mischievous smile, his gaze reflecting the shared pleasure. Servant 3, even better than Lady Aphrodite? Asked the third servant with curiosity, her lips parted in anticipation. Aries, of course. Aphrodite is just a game to me, a whim. I keep her as a lover just to taunt my crippled brother. I feel no true love for her, declared the god arrogantly, without a hint of remorse in his voice, as his servants nodded in complicity, sharing his contempt for the goddess of love. They all mocked her behind her back. High in the sky, Helios, the sun god, listened to every whisper that echoed in Ares' temple. Although aware of the potential chaos that could be unleashed if he revealed what he had heard, and how that could hurt Aphrodite, Helios chose to remain silent for the moment. A deep resentment towards Aphrodite burned within him, fueled by the suffering she had caused to his friend Hephaestus. He longed for her to experience a painful lesson of her own, to understand the pain she had inflicted on the only man who had truly loved her, upon learning that she herself was just a disposable object to Ares. Back at Aphrodite's palace, she sighed, trying to hide the pain she felt in her heart. "I can't find Ares anywhere, and I doubt he's at his temple. Maybe he's busy buying me gifts or something like that. Ha! That must be it," she said to herself, trying to convince herself of the situation and shift her thoughts elsewhere. "I know. I'll go bother Hephaestus to give me a dress or a necklace, since he hasn't given me anything in such a long time," she exclaimed, letting out her frustration, especially when remembering Hephaestus's closeness with Athena. Arriving at Hephaestus's temple, the goddess repeatedly knocked on the door but received no response. Her heart was pounding, something about this situation didn't sit right with her, and she was determined to find out what was going on. "Hephaestus, open the door," shouted Aphrodite, impatiently banging on the door as the echo of her voice resonated through the empty halls. But no one answered. The absence of any sign of life in the palace heightened her sense of loneliness and abandonment. Determined to get answers, Aphrodite decided to take matters into her own hands. With a resigned sigh, the goddess grabbed a strand of her hair, which extended to the lock and transformed into a key. After a click, she managed to open the door. "And they said I was only good for sex," she thought with a mix of pride. However, within seconds, that feeling left her with a bitter taste, as if that quality was empty. Leaving behind that sensation, she entered the temple and embarked on a silent walk. In the overwhelming silence of the temple, Aphrodite could observe the place with renewed eyes. She didn't usually come here, as Hephaestus always brought her gifts, but the few times she had entered, she had never seen the place as beautiful as now. She frowned upon noticing details that were clearly the work of a woman. "Again, I feel something I don't like," she told herself. Each step made her feel more alone, as the void of Hephaestus's absence became heavier with each step she took. "Hephaestus, where are you?" she whispered in a barely perceptible murmur. Her words barely found an echo in the temple's golden and crystal walls. "Where are you, husband?" I stopped short, surprised to hear those words escape her lips unintentionally. The word husband echoed in Aphrodite's mind with a sense of strangeness, as if she were uttering an unfamiliar term. She had never before called Hephaestus that, and the simple idea of that truth filled her with discomfort and another feeling she couldn't describe. As she made her way through the temple's intricate corridors, the sweet and welcoming scent of what she knew was baby powder filled the air, enveloping her in a mix of curiosity and confusion. Her steps led her to a slightly ajar door, and with a mix of curiosity and fear, she decided to enter the room that lay before her. Upon entering, she observed a room filled with children's toys. An empty crib occupied the center of the space. Aphrodite stood still, looking at the scene with a furrowed brow. "What is this?" she murmured, feeling a tide of emotions overwhelm her. She slowly approached the crib, running her fingers along the edge with unexpected gentleness. The presence of that nursery in Hephaestus's temple was a mystery she couldn't comprehend. The image of Hephaestus caring for a child, one who was not his own, crossed her mind. "Why did he never tell me about this?" she wondered aloud, her voice trembling slightly. She felt a pang of jealousy and another of guilt, both struggling to dominate her thoughts. Aphrodite sank into a nearby chair, her gaze lost on the crib. "Perhaps it's because I never cared enough to know him truly," she whispered, feeling her world shift. "I guess I deserve this." The sight of the crib left Aphrodite breathless, as if the world stood still for a moment. For the first time in centuries, fear seized her, leaving her trembling. The idea that Hephaestus could have replaced her in his heart struck her with devastating force, tearing apart the security she had always boasted of. She had always considered herself the best choice for him, but now, faced with this uncertainty, she felt on the brink of a dark and profound abyss. It can't be possible that another woman has taken her place in his heart, right? Aphrodite whispered in a trembling tone, as if fearing the answer she might receive. Unable to accept the possibility of losing him, she stood there, motionless, staring at the crib, confronting a truth she was not ready to face. "Maybe I haven't been the best wife," Aphrodite admitted in a barely audible whisper, being honest with herself about her life with Hephaestus. "But could anyone else fill his heart like I do?" Although she tried to reassure herself with these words, the seed of doubt continued to sprout in her mind, feeding her anxiety and fear. Determined to unravel the enigma looming over their relationship, Aphrodite vowed to stay alert and vigilant, ready to fight for her place in Hephaestus' heart. "I won't allow anything or anyone to tear us apart," she murmured firmly, though fear still lurked in the shadows of her mind. Unbeknownst to her yet, Hephaestus' heart already belonged to another woman, and ironically, the goddess of love herself was responsible for it. At that moment, while Aphrodite still struggled to understand the situation and change her attitude towards her husband, the sudden sound of the door opening broke her meditation, announcing Hephaestus' return. Her heart skipped a beat with anticipation and nervousness, wondering how to broach the conversation about their current relationship. Minutes earlier, a scene unfolded that seemed taken from a newlywed's tale. The goddess of wisdom, Athena, and the god Hephaestus shared a picnic in the beautiful garden hidden within Athena's temple. What was most curious was that a small infant rested in Athena's lap, cradled tenderly as she played with his tiny hands. Hephaestus, with a smile lighting up his face, said, "Athena, the days with you are truly beautiful, and I can't believe how lovely this day is." "It's true, Hephaestus. I'm enjoying every moment I spend with you," Athena replied, joy shining in her eyes. "And having this little one here makes it even more special." The baby, oblivious to the conversation of the gods, let out a soft babble, drawing the attention of both. Athena looked fondly at Eros and said, "Hephaestus, I confess that the time I spend with you makes me very happy. Who would have thought that 2 years have passed since that day? Since then, you two have made me the happiest woman and goddess in the world." With a gentle smile, Athena caressed the baby's cheek, while Hephaestus observed the scene with tenderness, feeling fortunate to share his life with them. "And we are also happy to have you in our lives," assured Hephaestus, placing a hand over hers tenderly. The scene radiated a warmth and palpable happiness, as if time had stopped to allow them to enjoy that moment of peace. However, that sense of peace was interrupted when Hephaestus remembered something. I'm such a fool, I forgot Eros' diapers and just on our day out in the countryside," thought Hephaestus to himself, lamenting his oversight as he glanced down at the ground with regret. Noticing the change in her friend's expression, Athena frowned with curiosity. "What's wrong, Hege?" she asked softly, noting the concern in Hephaestus' eyes. Hephaestus took a deep breath before responding, searching for the right words to express his mistake. "Athena, forgive me. I think I forgot Eros' diapers at home," he confessed with a nervous smile, gently withdrawing his hands from hers. "I'll have to go back. Stay here with Eros. I'll be back in a while." My love, you're such a silly goose," the goddess said with a warm smile, unaware of the effect of her words. As she finished the sentence, Hephaestus blushed intensely, his face turning crimson, and Athena couldn't help but blush herself. "Hege, it's not what you think," exclaimed Athena, feeling the heat rising in her face to color her cheeks. "I said, darling, with no ill intentions," she added, embarrassed. "Don't worry, Athena," responded Hephaestus, also blushing. "We all make mistakes," he tried to reassure her. "Let me go back home to fetch Eros' diapers while you set up the picnic, all right?" the god proposed, flashing a smile. "And if you prefer, I can take Eros with me so he won't bother you," he added. "No, it's fine, leave him with me," replied Athena. "I love being with him, besides, I think you don't take care of him as well as I do," she added with a little laugh at the end, trying to alleviate the tension. "Hey," interrupted Hephaestus with a hint of annoyance in his tone, although his smile betrayed his affection. "I'm an excellent father. I've taken care of Eros for a long time," he affirmed proudly. "Yes, yes, I know, but remember that I've also taken care of him for a long time," replied Athena with a smile, raising her hand in a farewell gesture. "Go get the diapers, I'll wait for you here," she said as Hephaestus walked away. Once he was gone, Athena was able to calm her wildly beating heart. "Phew, that was close, my little Eros," whispered Athena, gently caressing the child's cheek, who responded with a contagious laugh. "I almost lost your dad," Athena joked as she tickled little Eros. "Mama, mama, mama," were the only words the child said, which made Athena smile even more. Hephaestus approached his temple, but a palpable fear lodged itself in his chest. The main door, usually imposing and closed, now lay open, like an ominous invitation to venture into the unknown. With firm steps, the 2-meter colossus crossed the threshold into the temple's interior, each step resonating in the surrounding silence. However, it didn't take long before a feeling of discomfort invaded him. The atmosphere displeased him as he perceived a painfully familiar smell, evoking memories and emotions he would have preferred to have left buried in the past. "Oh, by Gaia, no," he whispered in a murmur laden with anguish as he made his way through the temple corridors. "Please, let it not be her," he silently prayed, feeling the uncertainty consuming him from within, like a venomous snake injecting its poison. Thoughts crowded his mind, like a storm threatening to tear apart his sanity. "No, no, no," he repeated to himself, unable to ignore the fact that the woman who had always hurt him was there to bother him again. Why today? Why right now? Why not tomorrow, or never? Each question was filled with anger because now that he was happy, he didn't need Aphrodite's presence to ruin everything. Hephaestus felt the presence of the woman he once loved and stopped in front of Eros's room, whose door was slightly ajar. With his heart pounding in his chest, he murmured to himself, "I just hope she's not in there," as he carefully pushed the door open. To his surprise, he found Aphrodite inside, with a neutral expression. "Hephaestus, what is this?" The goddess's voice echoed in the room, tinged with seriousness and hatred. Hephaestus sensed a mixture of pain, confusion, and perhaps a hint of repressed anger in her eyes. However, at that moment, his own heart was so full of bitterness that he no longer cared how she felt. "Are you blind?" "This is just a room," the god replied in a neutral tone. Suddenly, the sound of a slap broke the silence. Smack! Aphrodite had struck Hephaestus, her hand trembling with anger and desperation. "I swear I tried to calm down, but all my serenity vanished in an instant, and unknowingly, in that moment, I would unite two gods forever. My desires to confront my husband calmly faded upon seeing his face, a face that no longer radiated the tenderness and love that used to comfort me, and that I never told him how good it made me feel. That absence of affection hurt me deeply. My emotions, like waves in a raging sea, overflowed with fear that another woman had taken what I considered mine by right. I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of anger, entangled in my own fears and suspicions, and unleashed my fury on Hephaestus. Do you think I'm stupid or what, you damn deformed monster?" I shouted, feeling how anger and pain intertwined in every word that escaped my lips. My voice resonated with a hatred that sprang from the depths of my being, with the sole purpose of hurting my husband. Hephaestus brought a hand to his cheek, surprised by Aphrodite's slap. Why is she acting like this? He wondered silently, trying to understand the reason behind her violent reaction. Do you think I don't know you're screwing any woman who spreads her legs for you? Aphrodite continued, unable to contain the fury that invaded her, pouring out accusations that threatened to tear apart what little was left of their relationship. Hephaestus was taken aback by her accusatory words. How dare she throw such accusations at him when she herself was known for her own amorous indiscretions? He was aware of that truth, but her fury blinded her completely. He could perceive a flash of anger on his wife's face, but he quickly suppressed it, struggling to maintain composure in this situation. His gaze reflected a mixture of surprise and disappointment, as if Aphrodite's words were blasphemy in his eyes. And his face reflected pity for her, which only made Aphrodite angrier with each passing second. "Aphrodite," Hephaestus said, "how can you think that of me? I've been loyal, even when I knew about your own deceit. I've never been with another woman." The goddess was speechless for a moment, her anger momentarily eclipsed by surprise. But resentment still bubbled within her, preventing her from accepting the sincerity of his words. "Do you really expect me to believe you?" she retorted, her voice trembling. "After seeing you so close to Athena, do you really expect me to believe in your loyalty?" "Yes," Hephaestus replied, his tone firm and resolute. "Because it's the truth. But it seems that truth no longer matters between us." I wanted to calm down, start anew with Hephaestus, aware that at this point, one wrong step could mean the definitive end of our relationship. But the memory of seeing Hephaestus and Athena so happy together continued to torment me, and it fueled the flames of my anger. "Don't play innocent, I know you're cheating on me with her." I shouted with fury, unable to contain my anger. Hephaestus tried to deny his wife's accusations, although his voice betrayed a slight annoyance at the injustice of the situation. "Aphrodite, I don't know what you're talking about," he began, his tone reflecting a mix of confusion and frustration. "If you want gifts, you can go to my chamber of objects. There are plenty of dresses there, you can take as many as you want," he added, trying to steer the conversation in another direction and avoid an even greater confrontation. Slap. Another slap echoed in the room, louder than the previous one. Hephaestus closed his eyes for a moment, needing to calm down. In his mind, infinite memories of his wife humiliating him, sidelining him, and lying with others without a shred of remorse replayed. But he also remembered the first time he saw her, long before either of them ascended to Olympus. He remembered how she, despite her beauty, was a good person, living among nymphs and radiating kindness. He remembered how her smile was what first captivated him, and that calmed him. Although he no longer loved her, there was a part of him that still clung to the hope that deep down she remained the same kind person he had known in those now distant days. "Listen to me, Aphrodite," pleaded Hephaestus, struggling to keep calm as his wife was consumed by rage. "You're wrong, this isn't what it seems, I've never cheated on you." His words were sincere, but he was tired of the constant conflicts with his wife. However, Aphrodite barely paid attention, and her words came out like a torrent of poison. "Listen to you. You, deformed monster," she spat with contempt. "You will never know love, no one wants to be with such a grotesque creature as you, and that's why I love Aries." Aphrodite's words struck Hephaestus like a punch to the heart. Despite this, he knew he had to keep trying to reason with her. "Aphrodite, please, don't say things you'll regret later. Please, listen to me this time. Aries isn't what you think, he's not the man you think. He doesn't love you, please, you have to believe me." For a moment, he glimpsed a spark of doubt in Aphrodite's eyes, but it was soon replaced by a look filled with hatred. "Aries is a real man. He's the very embodiment of masculinity," responded Aphrodite, her words dripping with scorn towards Hephaestus. "There's no better man than him, and you are just a monster whom his own mother wished dead from the day you were born, and I don't need an ugly deformed monster like you as a husband." Aphrodite's words struck Hephaestus in his heart, but he struggled to keep his composure. I know I'm not perfect and beautiful like everyone else," but he began, trying to defend himself. "But nothing," she cut him off furiously. "Aries is beautiful, powerful, and he's everything you'll never be." Hephaestus felt anger rising within him, but he struggled to remain calm. "Aphrodite, I ask you to calm down. Not everything is as it seems, and love isn't just about outer beauty. It goes far beyond superficiality. It's about connection, loyalty, and true understanding between two people." "Oh, please. Don't make me laugh with your philosophical nonsense," retorted Aphrodite disdainfully. "I'd rather be with a man like Aries than with a creature like you." His wife's words hit him hard, but Hephaestus held on to the hope that someday she would see beyond superficial appearances. However, He knew that by the time that happened, he wouldn't be by her side anymore. Hephaestus struggled to contain the tears threatening to overflow from his eyes. He didn't understand how he had come to receive so much contempt from the woman he had loved with all his being, the woman he had dedicated his life to care for and protect to make her happy. "I'm sorry," he murmured softly, his words echoing in the silence of the room. Aphrodite had an arrogant smile as she saw her husband in that state. "Forgive me, Aphrodite. I see your pain in your eyes. I know you've hated me since you were forced to marry me, and that's why I apologize," said Hephaestus, with deep sadness and resignation in his tone. He recognized that their marriage had been a mistake from the beginning and had caused pain to both. However, his apologies fell on deaf ears. Aphrodite no longer wanted to hear more. She turned away from him with disdain, her face twisted with the hatred burning within her. "I don't want to hear from you anymore," she snapped coldly. "Your very presence disgusts me." Hephaestus watched helplessly as Aphrodite walked away, feeling a deep pain and anger towards his wife. He knew there was no way to stop her, at least not in that moment. However, what happened next left him stunned. Aphrodite entered the hall where Hephaestus prepared all her gifts. He watched in surprise as she swept through, destroying everything in her path, tearing apart the dresses he had crafted with such care. Every tear in the fabric felt like a direct blow to Hephaestus's heart, who watched the scene with disbelief and sadness. "No, Aphrodite, please stop," he pleaded, but his words were lost in the air as he watched her destroy the creations he had lovingly made for her in the past. Every tear in the fabric, every shattered jewel, felt like a direct blow to his soul. She exerted her divine power, and several gusts of wind finished destroying the entire place. And then, to culminate her act of disdain, Aphrodite turned to him with a deranged smile on her lips. With a gesture of absolute contempt, she spat in Hephaestus's face, as if to show him that his life was insignificant. The god felt an overwhelming mixture of sadness and anger as tears freely flowed down his face. He didn't understand how it had come to this, how she could do all of that to him. Aphrodite was about to leave, but before she did, she turned her head towards Hephaestus. In her gaze, there was nothing but scorn and hatred. "I will never love you," she said coldly, as if those words were an unavoidable fact. The god watched in silence as she walked away without even turning to see how her actions had affected her husband, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Although he had once loved Aphrodite with all his being, there was no trace of love left for her now, but that didn't mean her words hurt any less. Hearing those cruel words from his wife reminded him again and again of the bitter reality of his situation: he would never be loved. With his hands, he clutched his chest and squeezed it tightly as if it physically hurt him. Why does it hurt so much? He wondered through sobs as he fell to his knees in his temple, feeling the overwhelming weight of loneliness and the pain of being unloved. Hephaestus stayed there, alone amidst the destruction of his temple, with a broken heart and a soul torn apart by the cruelty of the words of someone he had once loved with all his being. Hephaestus didn't understand why his wife hated him so much. All he longed for was to build a beautiful life with her, to start a family, to raise children together. That's why, with care and dedication, he had erected the temple for his wife with his own hands. He remembered those exhausting days, when he barely slept to dedicate himself completely to the construction of the temple. Every stone laid, every detail carved, was a demonstration of his love and devotion to her. But when he finally finished the majestic work, his wife's first act was to desecrate that sacred place with betrayal, surrendering to the arms of her brother Aries, in the same temple he had built with so much effort and love. But what happened next he would never forget. Aphrodite's words were like knives plunging into his chest. "You are forbidden entry, only my lovers can enter," those words echoed in Hephaestus's mind. The pain and indignation overwhelmed him. His wife's contempt was a fatal blow to his life. That vile act by his wife left his heart shattered and his dignity trampled. He took refuge in his workshop, seeking solace in work or drinking copious amounts of alcohol. He set aside his memories. Finally, after much reflection, Hephaestus made a decision. He would seek out Hera, his supposed mother, and ask her to end his torment, to free him from the bond that tied him to Aphrodite. He was tired of enduring the pain she inflicted on him, and now he wanted a divorce. He got up as best he could and headed to a shelf where he had dozens of bottles of the strongest wine. With nothing else to do, he proceeded to drink until he forgot his pain. Athena frowned as she realized Hephaestus was taking longer than expected. The sun was slowly descending on the horizon, painting the sky with golden and pink hues that announced the arrival of the night. Worry gradually took over her mind. Where could Hege be? She wondered with unease, scanning the sky for any sign. She tried to reassure herself, telling herself that maybe he had been delayed by some unforeseen circumstance. However, a persistent feeling of unease settled in her chest, refusing to accept the idea that something bad could have happened to Hephaestus. Worry gnawed at her from within, and she finally decided she couldn't just sit idly by. With determination, she picked up Eros in her arms. She looked at Eros with a forced smile and said, "Come on, my little one, it seems like Daddy needs our help," trying to hide her concern under a layer of calmness. Eros, oblivious to the weight of worry weighing on Athena, radiated joy as he repeated the words. "Daddy, Mommy, Daddy, Mommy," he exclaimed, extending his arms towards the sky with innocent happiness. Athena nodded with gratitude to have the little one, whom she considered her own son, by her side to offer support in this moment of uncertainty. "That's right, darling, we're going to find Daddy together," she responded with renewed determination. With steady steps, Athena quickly gathered her belongings and made her way towards her beloved's temple, hoping to find him safe and sound. However, her heart beat with a mixture of anxiety and fear as she approached the place that used to be a refuge for her husband. Everything seemed normal until she saw the door of her beloved's temple wide open, a sign that something was amiss. Athena entered the temple, trying to ignore the oppressive feeling looming in the air. She instantly recognized the residual energy emanating around her, an energy she knew all too well, that which was here. A growl of disgust escaped her lips as she remembered the main source of Hephaestus' pain. With determination, she headed towards Eros' room. Upon entering, she felt relief to see that it was almost intact. However, the relief quickly faded when she reached the place where she sensed Aphrodite's trail, a storeroom where the gifts for Aphrodite were stored, or as she called her, the bitchiest bitch of all. Upon entering the salon, what she found there left her breathless. Everything was destroyed, as if a hurricane had swept through everything in its path. Among the rubble, she could distinguish fragments of the gifts crafted by Hephaestus for Aphrodite, scattered on the floor in a sad spectacle of desolation. Some were broken into pieces, others unrecognizable under the devastation. The goddess shuddered at the thought of the pain and despair Hephaestus must have felt seeing his work destroyed in that way. "That damn bitch," she growled angrily, her words filled with rage, as a silver aura surrounded Athena, reflecting her anger. "I swear that bitch will pay for this." But her anger dissipated when she heard sobbing, recognizing a heart-wrenching sound in the darkness of the temple. Athena followed the sound cautiously, fearing the worst but prepared to face any challenge that came her way. With slow steps, she approached a dark corner and there, in the shadows, she saw the broken figure of the person she loved. Athena's heart sank at the sight of Hephaestus in that state, shattered and his face reflecting all the pain he had endured so far. Her silver eyes adjusted to the darkness and scanned the room, stopping at the wine bottles scattered on the floor around her beloved. Athena's heart filled with pain as she understood what had happened. She didn't need to be a goddess of wisdom to understand that Hephaestus had fallen into despair, drowning his pain in alcohol. Without saying a word, Athena approached him, ready to offer him the comfort and support he so desperately needed in this moment of darkness. "What have they done to you?" Athena whispered, feeling her heart ache at the sight of the person she loved in such a desolate state. Hephaestus was about to open another bottle of wine, but Athena's firm hand stopped him in his tracks. "Enough, Hephaestus," she shouted, her voice echoing throughout the temple, although he still seemed unaware of her presence. Slowly, Hephaestus lifted his gaze, his eyes filled with tears reflecting the torment consuming him. "Why is everyone so cruel to me?" he asked with a broken voice, his pain palpable in every word. And he lowered his gaze again, more tears welling up from within him. Athena felt a lump in her throat upon hearing him, but she knew she had to stay strong, for him and for their little Eros. With gentleness, she took Hephaestus' face in her hands, forcing him to look into her eyes. "Look at me, Hephaestus," she whispered softly, seeking to convey all the love she felt for him. "Hege, I know the treatment you receive from the other gods can be difficult, but you must not allow the negative comments to affect you," Athena began, her voice full of affection and determination. "You must focus on the words that make you feel good and special." Hephaestus looked at her with gratitude, feeling comforted by Athena's words. "Thank you, Athena," he murmured, his eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and hope. "You're right, I still have people who love me, good and kind people like you." Athena nodded with a radiant smile. "Exactly, Hege. Besides, you're an incredibly talented and valuable god, and I won't let you forget that," she said firmly, instilling confidence in every word. Athena's face reflected sadness but also determination, as she would wait no longer and would take the man that Aphrodite left. "And you must stop fighting for something that was broken from the beginning," Athena continued firmly, her gaze meeting Hephaestus as she tenderly stroked his face. "Aphrodite doesn't deserve you, Hege. You're the most beautiful person I've ever seen and the best father a child could wish for." Hephaestus was speechless at Athena's sweet words. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice brimming with gratitude and surprise. Athena continued, her tone full of tenderness and sincerity, "And above all, you're the man I fell in love with," she added with a warm smile, her eyes shining with genuine love for him. Hephaestus' eyes widened in surprise at hearing Athena's words, his chest pounding with a mixture of disbelief and hope filling his being, making him believe that perhaps, after all, true love was closer than he had imagined. Athena approached slowly, to seal her words with a gesture of love. Their lips met in a slow and affectionate kiss. For both of them, it was their first kiss, a special moment that would mark the beginning of a new stage in their relationship. After a while that seemed eternal and at the same time fleeting, they separated slowly. Athena broke the silence with a mischievous smile. "Did you like the kiss, Hege?" she asked, amused by the blush on Hephaestus' cheeks. Athena eagerly awaited Hephaestus' response, worried that she might have spoiled their relationship with her sudden gesture of love. However, she received no response, but before she could lament her outburst, she felt him embrace her and kiss her passionately, dispelling all her doubts and fears. After the kiss, Hephaestus asked her a question that made Athena smile affectionately because of how obvious her answer was. "Athena, do you truly love me?" he asked, with a hint of doubt. It was a question filled with hope for him, who longed to be truly loved by someone. Athena met Hephaestus' eyes and, without hesitation, responded with all the love she felt for him, "With all my heart, Hege. You're the first and only man I'll love in my entire life." Her words resonated with passion as she drew closer to him to seal their love with another passionate kiss, feeling her heart beating in unison with his beloved's. After parting from the kiss, Athena continued speaking, "I hope you'll allow me to heal your heart, Hege. Aphrodite doesn't deserve it, and I won't miss the opportunity to be with you." Her voice resonated with determination, showing her willingness to care for him and love him eternally. Hephaestus felt a lump in his throat upon hearing Athena's words, as only his mother Thetis had shown him so much affection in the past. His heart filled with happiness. "Athena, would you like to be my girlfriend?" the god asked, feeling the blush coloring his cheeks with shyness. The goddess smiled tenderly, her eyes shining with complicity as she looked at the sleeping little Eros. "Hee, I think it could even be something more," Athena replied, her voice resonating with contained excitement. Hephaestus felt a wave of happiness wash over him as he heard Athena's words. "Thank you for loving this monster." Athena leaned her forehead against Hephaestus, sharing a moment of deep connection. "You are not a monster, you are the man I fell in love with," she whispered sincerely. "And I love you with all my heart." Athena's words filled Hephaestus' heart with joy. Finally, after so much suffering and pain, He found the love he longed for in the arms of the goddess who had seen beyond his flaws and loved him unconditionally. So are we a real family now? Athena asked with a giggle, referring to the two of them and little Eros, who slept peacefully in Athena's lap. Hephaestus felt his heart expand with happiness. His eyes lit up with a special sparkle as he looked at the woman before him, the same woman who had come to mean so much in his life. "We always were, Athena, we always were," he replied softly, a loving smile illuminating his face as a tear of happiness escaped him. With her hand, she wiped away the tear and gave him a brief kiss, tenderly sealing the beginning of their new life together. "Shall we start repairing our home?" Athena proposed with a spark of excitement in her eyes, as her gaze wandered over the home they had shared for the past 2 years, envisioning a future together. "Of course, dear. For you, I would do anything," he affirmed tenderly, delicately caressing Athena's hand as if wanting to convey all the love he felt for her in that simple yet significant gesture. "Well, what are we waiting for then? Let's get started, there's still plenty to do," exclaimed the goddess with enthusiasm, taking Hephaestus' hand. She couldn't wait to finish their home and live with their newly formed family. And so, from a beautiful friendship, a family was formed. Several days had passed since Athena and Hephaestus had become a couple, and their love had grown over time. Everything was peaceful until a soft knock was heard on the front door. Hephaestus got up to see who it was, and upon opening the door, he was met with a familiar figure that filled him with excitement and nostalgia. It was his mother, Thetis, the woman who had raised him with love since his biological mother had abandoned him. "Hello, how are you, my baby?" greeted Thetis lovingly, her eyes shining with affection as she hugged her son. Hephaestus returned the hug affectionately, feeling a wave of love and gratitude towards the woman who had always been by his side. "I'm very well, Mom. Come in, the god invited enthusiastically. "I want to introduce you to someone very special," he added, with a spark of excitement in his voice. "Wow, it seems like you're really excited to introduce her to me, my little rock," Thetis commented with an ironic smile, her tone revealing a mixture of curiosity and caution, knowing that her son had not always been treated kindly. As they walked, Hephaestus, who was walking ahead, turned to his mother with a radiant smile on his face and nodded. "Yes, she's very special to me," he confirmed joyfully, before adding with a sparkle in his eyes, "and besides, I love her very much." Thetis's expression changed slightly, and a flash of concern crossed her eyes. "I hope it's not that bitch Aphrodite, because if it's her, I swear I'll slap that bitch's face," Thetis growled, making her dislike for the goddess of love and beauty clear. "Don't worry, Mommy. It's not her," Hephaestus replied, with a reassuring smile. "She's someone much better and she's the love of my life." After walking for a while, Hephaestus and Thetis arrived at the main hall where Athena was with little Eros. "Mother, let me introduce you to my girlfriend. You already know her, she's Athena," announced Hephaestus with a big smile on his face, radiating happiness in his words. "Hello, nice to meet you, mother-in-law," greeted Athena with a slight blush on her cheeks, feeling a little embarrassed for not having dressed up to meet her beloved's mother. "Oh my Hea," exclaimed Thetis, surprised, unable to believe what she was seeing. "But she's the goddess of wisdom and strategy. She's your girlfriend." "Yes, mother. She's the only woman who doesn't just focus on my appearance, but on my feelings. And that's why I've fallen in love with her," declared Hephaestus, directing a loving gaze towards his beloved. Suddenly, Thetis approached Athena and a celestial aura appeared. Her serious expression and intimidating aura made Athena a little nervous. "What are your intentions with my baby?" Thetis asked firmly, her tone making it clear that she expected an honest and satisfying answer. "Don't worry, mother-in-law," Athena began, somewhat nervous at first. She took a breath to calm herself before continuing. "If you think I'm like Aphrodite, you're very mistaken. I'm not like that bitch. I will take good care of Hephaestus' heart and I will be faithful to him for life, because he is the only man who has captured my heart. He's the only god of Olympus who is truly worth loving." A massive blush appeared on her cheeks. Besides, he is my first and only love. So I ask you to please give me your authorization and blessing to marry him," the goddess expressed with sincere words, making it clear that she was serious about her relationship with Hephaestus. Athena then looked lovingly at Hephaestus. "In fact, congratulations, mother-in-law. You raised a very good man." Thetis's face reflected surprise as she listened to Athena's sincere words. Then, with an affectionate gesture, she placed a hand on the goddess's shoulder, and a warm smile appeared on her face. "Athena, if you love my son and are willing to care for him as he deserves, then you have my blessing," she said with a gentle yet firm voice, her eyes shining with genuine affection. "Welcome to the family, daughter." Athena was happy, knowing that her biological mother had suffered a cruel fate and never knew her, and now not only did she have a family with her beloved, but she also had a maternal figure in Thetis. Then, Hephaestus's mother turned her gaze to her son with an expression of pride and joy, giving him a thumbs up in approval. "Hee, I like your girlfriend, Hege. You have my blessing and permission," declared Thetis, her aggressive attitude having changed to a more jovial and welcoming one. The sudden change in mood took Hephaestus and Athena by surprise, but they sighed with relief to see that the meeting had taken a positive turn. "And when will you give me grandchildren?" impatiently asked the god's mother. Her direct question made both gods blush, not knowing how to respond. Before they could articulate an answer, Thetis felt a small tug on her left leg. Looking down, she found a little baby, whose eyes shone with innocence as he babbled sweetly. "Mama, Mama," said the little one, pointing at a blushing Athena. She quickly took the baby in her arms, cuddling him with tenderness and showering him with love. Hephaestus responded with a nervous smile, "Well, there you have it, Mom. Your first grandchild," announced the god, indicating little Eros in Athena's arms. Thetis couldn't believe it. Her dream of becoming a grandmother had finally come true. Emotion overwhelmed her so much that she was about to snatch little Eros from Athena's arms. "Finally!" Thetis exclaimed with overflowing happiness. "Finally, I have a grandson," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy and excitement. "Come on, little one, say grandma," she said to the baby enthusiastically. Eros, with a charming smile, sweetly pronounced, "Tita. Tita. No, no, no. It's grandma, grandma. Repeat after me," Thetis insisted patiently, trying to teach little Eros to pronounce the word correctly. "Tita," the child repeated with an adorable expression on his face. Thetis shook her head with a smile, acknowledging the little one's stubbornness. "Well, it seems you're as stubborn as your dad," she commented affectionately, remembering how her own son had been stubborn in his childhood. Eros laughed, a sound that filled Thetis's heart with joy. "Well, how about you two go on a date in the human world? I've heard that humans have great couple activities. I think it will help you get to know each other better," Thetis suggested eagerly, encouraging Hephaestus and Athena to spend time together outside of Olympus. Hephaestus responded with doubt, "We'd like to, but we don't have anyone to take care of Eros." "Nonsense. From today onwards, whenever you go out, I'll take care of my grandson," declared Thetis enthusiastically. Hephaestus looked at Athena with affection and asked, "What do you think, my love? Do you want to go?" "I would love to, Hege," the goddess replied joyfully, excited about the idea of sharing a special time with her beloved. "Well, what are you waiting for? Change and enjoy your date while my grandson and I get to know each other better," insisted Thetis, encouraging them to seize the opportunity while she took care of Eros. Hephaestus and Athena looked at each other with a mix of excitement and gratitude. "Thank you, Mom," said Hephaestus, kissing Thetis on the cheek before taking Athena's hand. "Let's go, dear. It will be a wonderful evening," he said, leading Athena to the door. Thetis watched them leave, feeling deeply satisfied. Then, she looked at Eros and smiled. "Well, little one, it looks like you and I are going to have a good time together," she said, hugging him tenderly. Hephaestus and Athena decided to go to a festival in the human world. Athena was very excited, as it would be her first date on Earth. Upon arrival, they were fascinated by the variety of attractions and the vibrant energy filling the atmosphere. They strolled among the food stalls, sampled different culinary delights, and had fun at the fair games. They enjoyed live music, danced together to the rhythm of the melodies, and immersed themselves in the festive atmosphere surrounding them. Amid laughter and lively conversations, they shared unforgettable moments that strengthened their bond. At the end of the night, they decided to find a quiet spot to enjoy the fireworks lighting up the night sky. Hephaestus and Athena headed together to a hill. "Athena, what do you think if we sit here?" suggested Hephaestus, spreading a blanket on the ground for them to settle in. "That sounds wonderful, Hege," replied Athena with a radiant smile, accepting the invitation and settling in beside him. Soon, the sky was filled with bursts of light and sound, and both were amazed by the beauty of the fireworks. "Look at that one," exclaimed Athena, pointing to a bright flash unfolding across the sky like hundreds of stars. "It's really beautiful." "Yes, it is," replied Hephaestus, admiring the look of wonder on Athena's face. "But not as much as you." Athena blushed and laughed softly, feeling happy and loved. "You're so sweet, my Hege," she said, resting her head on Hephaestus's shoulder. Hephaestus hugged her tenderly, feeling a deep peace and joy in his heart. "Thank you for making me so happy, Athena," he whispered, gently kissing her hair. "Thank you for loving me like this," she replied, enjoying the moment, feeling that, at that precise moment, everything was perfect. After a while admiring the spectacle, the fireworks began to diminish, leaving a quiet silence in their place. Hephaestus looked at Athena tenderly and, without saying a word, leaned his head towards hers and gave her a gentle kiss on the lips. Athena responded to the kiss affectionately, feeling her heart filled with love and gratitude for having Hephaestus by her side. Then, she nestled against Hephaestus' chest, feeling his warmth and comforting presence as the last flickers of the fireworks faded in the dark sky. "Thank you for this special night, Hege," whispered Athena, feeling completely happy and at peace in his arms. "You're welcome, my love," Hephaestus responded softly, stroking her hair tenderly. "I love you." With a smile on her lips, Athena closed her eyes and let herself be enveloped by the warmth of the moment, knowing she was exactly where she wanted to be, with her beloved Hephaestus. "I love you more," Athena whispered before drifting off to sleep with a gentle smile on her face. Hephaestus hugged her lovingly, feeling immense peace having her in his arms, and gazed at the starry sky, grateful for every moment shared with her. A year had passed since that date which marked the beginning of a new chapter in Hephaestus and Athena's life. During that time, their bond had strengthened even further, as if every shared moment strengthened the ties that bound them. Meanwhile, Aphrodite was sinking into a deeper rift with her husband. Now, she had given birth to the twins Deimos and Phobos, which aroused some interest in their father, Aries. Aries couldn't help but feel intrigued by the offspring he had sired. He had been present at their birth, watching with a mixture of pride that soon turned to disdain. He had thought the little ones would be warriors worthy of his lineage. However, reality surpassed his expectations disappointingly. Although the twins possessed the potential for the battlefield, the aura surrounding them was weak, and their incessant crying didn't fit the image of worthy sons of a god of war. In the dark corner of his mind, Ares orchestrated a ruthless plan. He decided that Deimos and Phobos should share the fate of their deceased brother. But to carry out his plan, he needed to keep his machinations secret and hide his intentions from his lover's eyes. "That fool will be easy to deceive," Ares thought with mockery. After a few days, Ares and Aphrodite were in bed, both naked. With false tenderness, Ares spoke, "Aphrodite, darling, how about you take a break from looking after the children, and I'll take over. I could take them to a river I found. I'm sure they'll love it." Hiding his true intentions, the god spoke softly. Aphrodite responded with a wide smile, "Oh, Ares, my love, I always knew you were the most suitable for raising a family. I love you so much." Her words emanated innocence, unaware of her lover's machinations. "I would love to take a break. Besides, this way you'll have the chance to spend time with your children, since you're always so busy, my love. Yes, yes, of course. Take a break, I'll take care of it, replied Aries, with a barely perceptible malice in his tone. Aphrodite retired to rest, trusting in the love of her life, unaware that she was making a grave mistake. She lay down on her bed and closed her eyes to sleep, but an unpleasant sensation crept into her heart, yet she dismissed any suspicion. Aries loves me, she whispered to herself to soothe her heart, and seconds later, she fell asleep. Meanwhile, Aries, with a maniacal smile, placed the twins into a sack loaded with stones. Without remorse, he threw them down a waterfall on Mount Olympus, showing not the slightest hint of compassion for his children. He watched as the river's current carried the sack away. "Goodbye, little disgraces," said the god between mocking laughter as he watched the sack vanish into the turbulent waters. "Now I'll have to sire offspring with that woman again," Aries reflected disdainfully. "If she doesn't give me a worthy son this time, I'll abandon her. I don't deserve to have more offspring like them." Suddenly, a jaguar of imposing size and silver fur pounced on the sack with the twins, clutching it with its sharp fangs before disappearing into the undergrowth. Aries, with an amused look in his eyes, burst into malevolent laughter. "Ha, ha, ha. We'll meet again," said the god with a tone of mockery and contempt as he walked away, unaware that Athena was the jaguar and had witnessed everything he had done to the little twins. Athena, consumed by fury at what had happened, had transformed into a jaguar to rescue the children from the river. To avoid raising suspicions, she remained in animal form as she moved away from the scene. With determination, she quickly made her way to her beloved Hephaestus temple. Athena rushed into the temple and saw her partner, Hephaestus. "Hephaestus! Quickly, help me with this," she shouted in fear of how the babies were. For the bag she carried with her was sealed with some sort of spell that prevented her from opening it and helping the little ones, but this spell was no match for Hephaestus' large hands and colossal strength. With a tug, he tore the bag open and was left dumbfounded by its contents. "What is this?" exclaimed Hephaestus, filled with fear and dread. What he saw left him speechless: two little twins, barely a few months old, crying and severely injured from the waterfall's fall, with several bruises from the stones. Athena wasted no time and used her healing powers to ease the pain of the little ones, managing to calm their cries to gentle sobs. "Love, how did you find these two little ones?" asked Hephaestus, concern in his voice. "It was Aries, my love," replied Athena, her tone heavy with resentment toward the god of war. "I suspect he tried to do the same thing to them as he did to our little Eros. He tried to kill them. I guess he did it because of their low power level or something." Hephaestus frowned with anger. "That son of a bitch will pay dearly for what he did," he exclaimed, his voice resonating with fury. Without waiting any longer, he headed to his closet full of armor and weapons. With a gesture of his hand, a golden armor briefly shimmered before materializing over him. His face showed an implacable determination. He was determined to confront Aries. However, Athena stepped in his way and reached out her hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Calm down, my love," she pleaded with a soft yet firm voice. "Don't go, or you could trigger a war in Olympus. Aries is Hera's favorite, and if you confront him, most will be against you. I know you have the strength and power to defeat him, but it's not prudent, dear." She approached and hugged him tightly, her voice breaking a little. "I don't want to lose you," she said, raising her gaze and meeting her beloved's eyes. "Don't dirty your hands with that filth. It's not worth it." Hephaestus took a deep breath, feeling the warmth and reason in Athena's words. Slowly, his anger began to dissipate, though the pain and indignation still lingered. "For now, let's take care of these little ones," he said. "We'll protect them and give them the love that Ares and Aphrodite will never offer. Our revenge will be seeing them thrive under our care." Hephaestus nodded, embracing her tightly. "You're right, my dear. We'll take care of them, and we'll be the family they deserve. Ares will pay, but not today, but sooner or later, he'll suffer and feel my fists on his face." Athena gave Hephaestus a kiss, helping her beloved find the calm he needed. She gave him a comforting smile. "Look on the bright side, Hege, we have 2 more children now," she said, radiating happiness. "Yes, you're right. If that bastard doesn't want to raise them, I will, as if they were my own children," Hephaestus replied firmly. With gentleness, he lifted the 2 little ones in his arms and looked at them tenderly. "Calm down, little ones. From now on, you won't be alone. You're part of our family now," he said softly. Athena approached and kissed the foreheads of the little ones. "From today, we'll be a family," she affirmed tenderly, enveloping the twins and Hephaestus in a warm family hug. Hephaestus felt someone tugging at the hem of his pants, and when he looked down, he saw his eldest son, Eros, who was already 4 years old. "Daddy, what's there?" Eros asked, pointing to the 2 little ones his father was holding. Hephaestus gave him a smile. "They're your new siblings, Eros. Do you want to see them?" the god offered to his little eldest son. "Yes. Finally, I have siblings to play with," exclaimed the little god. With tenderness, Hephaestus lifted Eros so he could get a better look at the twins. The boy tilted his head. "Daddy, they're so small," he exclaimed, surprised by the tiny size of the newcomers. Hephaestus laughed at his son's comment. "Of course, son. You were small too, only you've grown over time." Excitedly, Eros spoke up, "Can I hold one?" "Ask your mom if you can," Hephaestus replied. "Mama, can I?" the boy shouted, seeking his mother's approval. Athena caressed her eldest son's face. "Okay, but be very careful," the goddess said, somewhat concerned, as she placed one of her new sons in Eros's arms. "Giggle, you tickle me, little brother," laughed the boy, as his new little brother seemed to try to bite him as if he wanted to eat him. Witnessing this scene, Hephaestus and Athena smiled, happy to see the interaction among their children. "By the way, Mom, what are their names?" Eros asked, leaving the 2 adults at a loss as they realized they hadn't yet chosen names for the twins. "Dear, I think you should choose both names, since you're their mother, and besides, I chose Eros's name." "So, it's your turn," Hephaestus suggested. Athena considered the suggestion for a moment and then made a decision. "All right. Their names will be Deimos and Phobos," the goddess announced. "Do you like your names?" Athena asked her new sons. The twins just laughed and applauded, indicating that they liked their names. This caused laughter in Eros and his parents, filling the room with joy and love. Some time had passed since that beautiful day. Hephaestus had spent 6 months meticulously preparing the best gifts for Hera, hoping that she would annul her marriage with Aphrodite and thus be able to marry Athena. He had dedicated all his time and effort to this task, ensuring that every detail was perfect. Now, with everything ready, only revealing his intentions to Hera remained, and today would be the day. He was tired and looked at his hands, full of burns and cuts, the result of working with the hardest materials in the world to create hundreds of works in a short time. He felt someone hugging him and turned his head. "Hello, darling," said Athena, her voice soft and comforting. I turned around and hugged her, feeling her warmth. "Now that you're here, I feel great," I replied. Athena stayed silent for a moment, then asked, "Today will be the day, right?" I leaned in and rested my head on her shoulder. "Yes, dear, today is the day I free myself from her," I responded with determination. She whispered teasingly, "That means from today on, you'll be all mine." I smiled and kissed her forehead, feeling a mix of hope and nervousness. "Yes, my love. I'll be only yours." Later, in the meeting hall of Mount Olympus, all the Olympian gods had gathered for an important occasion, a request made by the Olympian blacksmith. Some gods attended out of obligation, as Zeus had insisted that everyone be present, while others, intrigued, wanted to know what Hephaestus had to say. Zeus looked at his son with surprise at what he had heard, but kept his voice calm as he asked Hephaestus to repeat his request. Internally, he was intrigued and wanted to better understand the motives behind the request, as did most of those present in the throne room. In particular, one goddess couldn't believe what she had heard. Hephaestus took a deep breath and raised his voice so that everyone could hear him. "Yes, Father. I humbly request that my marriage with the goddess of love, Aphrodite, be dissolved," he declared calmly. Surprise and confusion seized all those present. Questions arose in the minds of the gods gathered in the throne room. Why did Hephaestus want to divorce Aphrodite? Had he found another woman? Zeus nodded slowly. "Hephaestus, I understand your decision, but why now? Why this sudden request?" Hephaestus looked at his father and then glanced at Athena, who was watching the scene with a serious expression but had a slight blush on her cheek. "I have found someone who makes me feel complete, Father. Someone I wish to spend the rest of my life with. But before I can be happy with her, I need to close this chapter of my life." Hephaestus turned his gaze to his biological mother, Hera, and pleaded with her. "Goddess Hera, I humbly ask that you grant my request. I beg you, please, break my marriage with Aphrodite," pleaded the god with a supplicating voice. Incredulity filled the room as everyone watched in astonishment what was happening. It was evident that Hephaestus' patience had reached its limit and that he no longer wanted to remain in his marriage with Aphrodite. Among those present, Hades, Helios, Hestia, and Artemis smiled, relieved that their nephew or brother could finally free himself from that troublesome marriage. On the other hand, Aphrodite was horrified, and her heart stopped for a moment. How had it come to this? Was it some kind of cruel joke by Hephaestus to scare her? She couldn't believe that her husband, the same Hephaestus who loved her so much, was asking for a divorce. Uncertainty and fear gripped her as she clung to the hope that it was all just a joke. Hera didn't even look at her son, as in her mind, he wasn't truly her son, at least that's what she told herself, as she had begun to feel guilty for hating him without a justifiable reason. "I'm sorry, Hephaestus, but marriage is eternal," declared the goddess firmly. Hephaestus forced a bitter smile. "I knew you would say that. You've never supported me, so I have something you might like. I'll give you some of the finest gifts. And I believe they might change your mind," the god responded as he pulled out an apparently endless sack from which emerged a mountain of gifts, the most luxurious and dazzling ever seen. They were even better than the ones he used to give Aphrodite. The room filled with murmurs and awe at the magnificence of the offerings, but Hera remained impassive, showing no interest whatsoever in her son's gifts. However, inside, Hera was surprised, although she tried not to show it. For a moment, she wanted to smile affectionately at her son, but she dismissed the idea. The emotional connection between mother and son was too deteriorated for that to mean anything to him. Hephaestus saw the look from his biological mother and how she remained silent. He used his last resort. "Please, Queen Hera, I'll give you anything you want, but please, let me be happy. At least once in life, do what a mother would do," the blacksmith god pleaded, even struggling to kneel due to his useless leg. "I beg you, mother," he added with a voice full of desperation, kneeling and feeling the anguish of not being able to be with the person he loved. Hephaestus looked at Hera with pleading eyes, hoping for a glimmer of compassion in her face, but she showed no emotion. He clenched his fists tightly and yelled, "If you grant this favor, I'll renounce being your son. That way, we'll have no bond." He was willing to make any sacrifice for his happiness and to live with Athena. Hera remained silent, with a seemingly emotionless gaze, but inside, she struggled with a myriad of doubts and conflicts. A small part of her longed to rise from her throne, run to her son, and embrace him, begging for forgiveness for all the times she had ignored or treated him with indifference, and telling him how much she loved him. In the face of Hera's silence, Hades decided to intervene. "You should grant this wish to Hephaestus, sister. After all, he built much of Olympus, and I remind you that he even made a palace for you," the god of the underworld said seriously, pointing out his nephew's work and effort. Hestia also spoke up. "Yes, sister. Hades is right. Let him be happy at least once," added the eldest goddess, supporting Hephaestus's request and expressing her wish to see him find the happiness he so deserved. Desperation gripped Aphrodite as she watched her marriage to Hephaestus hang by a thread. If she lost her husband, she would also lose access to the finest things and jewels he provided. But, more importantly, a part of her knew she couldn't imagine her life without him. With these concerns in mind, she decided to intervene. Aphrodite rose from her seat, her words filled with desperation resonating in the hall. "Hephaestus, you promised me you would stand by my side, no matter what happened. You promised," the goddess exclaimed, on the verge of tears, as her voice echoed throughout the room. However, Hephaestus didn't even bother to look at her, keeping his attention focused on Hera and her decision. Nonetheless, he responded with a serious and firm voice, "I promised you that when we got married, and I kept it. But on the very day of our wedding, you lay with Aries and Adonis." The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and Aphrodite took a few steps back, realizing that he knew the truth she thought would never come to light. Aphrodite wasn't ready to give up so easily. "But you know I do it because I am the goddess of love. It's my duty," she excused herself, trying to justify her actions. Hephaestus growled with annoyance. "No, Aphrodite. The problem is that you don't distinguish between love and lust. For you, both are the same, but they're not. And I'm no longer willing to live like this. I hope you understand that our relationship has come to an end. I can't go on living this way," he pronounced firmly, making his decision clear. With a trembling voice, Aphrodite pleaded, "Please, wait, Hephaestus. Listen to me. I swear I won't do it again. I'll be faithful to you. Please, don't leave me." Hephaestus, still kneeling, looked up and gave her a smile, but Aphrodite discerned it was fake. "I'm glad to hear you won't do it again, but I have to be honest. I don't love you anymore." His smile turned genuine as he said something that deeply hurt Aphrodite, "Another woman has stolen my heart. I'm sorry, but I don't think it affects you that much. You're the goddess of beauty, aren't you? All men are crazy about you." Then, his tone shifted abruptly, and his gaze became severe. "You don't need an ugly and deformed monster like me, do you?" the god said. Before Aphrodite could respond to contradict him and tell him he wasn't a monster, Hephaestus continued speaking firmly, "Have you forgotten already? You said it yourself," said the god, causing her to fall silent. She closed her eyes and remembered the cruel words she had said, reliving the painful moment when she had hurt her husband with her ruthless comments and cruel actions. Aphrodite struggled to hold back tears as she begged, "Please, wait, Hephi, please. I didn't mean it. Please, don't leave me. My power depends largely on our union. If you divorce me, I'll lose almost 70% of my strength. I beg you, don't make this decision," said the goddess, falling to her knees before him. Hephaestus simply shook his head. "I'm sorry, but that's no longer my concern," responded the god coldly. "May I ask why you wish to divorce?" Hera asked, seeking to understand the situation and resolve the matter fairly. Hephaestus glanced at Athena before meeting his mother's gaze. "Because I have found who I consider the love of my life, and now I have 3 wonderful children with that person. That's why I want to end my marriage," revealed the god, leaving everyone present astonished and surprised by the confession. The reactions of the other gods varied, some showed amazement, others joy, while some simply couldn't believe it was true. The news left everyone in a state of disbelief and speculation about who the mysterious woman who had captured the heart of the least handsome god could be. Aphrodite couldn't process the news. Her husband, whom she considered ugly, had found another woman and also had 3 children with her. Upon hearing that, her stomach churned with that truth. And she felt a sense of abandonment, as if she had already been forgotten. She felt alone, as if no one truly loved her. He tightened his fist, holding back the tears that threatened to spill. For the first time, he doubted Aries' love for her. In all the years she had been with her lover, Aries had never treated her with love, had never been as affectionate as Hephaestus was. She felt deceived by the illusion she had built around herself. The reality of her beliefs was shattering before her eyes, and she didn't know how to face it. "Hegi, Please. Aphrodite sobbed, her head bowed. I beg you, I implore you, please don't leave me, she added through tears, but her pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears. Hephaestus looked at her with a hint of pity, but his determination was firm. I'm sorry, I've made my decision. My family needs me, and I won't leave them for someone like you, declared the god, trying to keep calm in his words, although he knew they would be painful for Aphrodite. After hearing those painful words, no one noticed how a sparkle in Aphrodite's eyes faded. She felt as if a part of her had been lost in that moment. In Aphrodite's mind, only one thing kept repeating, I lost him. I really lost him. I was a fool. Hephaestus rose from the floor and turned his gaze to his mother, Hera. Would you grant me the divorce, Queen Hera? He asked with determination, although the answer he hoped for didn't come. Hera remained silent, feeling a mix of emotions. She didn't know how to tell her son to reconsider breaking the mother-son bond. However, before she could find the right words, Hephaestus grew impatient with her silence. He raised his aura, which seemed to burn like flames, and declared loudly, from today, I cease to be Hera's son. I swear it by the sticks. Hera wanted to stop him, but it was too late. A thunderous thunder echoed in the skies, sealing the oath. A lightning bolt struck Hephaestus, illuminating the hall with its light. When the light faded, everyone could notice a subtle change in Hephaestus. His hair, which had previously had red tones with purple tips similar to Hera's, was now completely red. Now, will you grant me my favor? Hephaestus asked with resentment in his eyes, directed at the woman who had brought him into the world and who had denied him the love a mother should give. Hera nodded, keeping her face impassive to hide the emotions stirring within her. Are you ready, Hephaestus? It will probably hurt like 1,000 demons, but still, do you want to continue? Asked the goddess. Hephaestus nodded determinedly, ready to put an end to his sham of a marriage. A violet aura materialized around Hera as she reached out her hand. A circle with ancient inscriptions emerged beneath the feet of Hephaestus and Aphrodite. This will hurt you, she announced, preparing them for the pain. Clack. It was the sound of her fingers snapping, marking the beginning of the ritual. Aphrodite's agonizing screams filled the room, seemingly endless suffering. Amid sobs, she repeated over and over, I'm sorry, please forgive me, Hegi. After a while, her wails ceased abruptly, leaving a tense silence in the air. Aphrodite, almost in a whisper, uttered words that everyone heard, I no longer feel his love in me. Hephaestus remained impassive, although the process also pained him, he showed no sign of pain. For he would not show weakness anymore, his last display of vulnerability was kneeling to end his relationship with Aphrodite. From that moment on, he vowed not to let anyone trample him again. With the ritual concluded, the meeting came to an end. Some congratulated Hephaestus on his divorce. Zeus spoke enthusiastically, this deserves a celebration. Most agreed and headed to the banquet hall to commemorate the moment. As everyone headed to the party hall, no one noticed the absence of Athena and Hephaestus. In a shadowy corner of Olympus, where the shadows provided refuge, a couple surrendered to the fervor of their love. Wrapped in a passionate embrace, Hephaestus and Athena surrendered to each other with an intensity that eclipsed everything around them. Athena, usually reserved and focused on her duties, yielded in the arms of the blacksmith she fervently loved. Her hands, accustomed to the quill and spear, now clung urgently to Hephaestus's robust body, while her heart pounded with the intense emotions she felt. Hephaestus, more familiar with the heat of the forge than the heat of love, devoted himself to Athena. His lips eagerly sought those of the goddess, while his hands caressed her soft skin. In that corner, away from the prying eyes of the other gods, Hephaestus and Athena immersed themselves in the ecstasy of their love, a love they had kept hidden for years. In a whisper, Athena spoke, What shall we do, Hephaestus? You know that if we're discovered, we'll be in trouble. Hephaestus, his voice hoarse with desire, whispered, I know, Athena, but I can't resist you. You're the light in my life, the spark that ignites my heart, the woman I love. Athena smiled and tenderly stroked his face. And you're the only one who understands my mind and my heart. But if we get caught. Before she could finish, Hephaestus interrupted her with a passionate kiss. It doesn't matter. I can't imagine a world where we're not together. I've already separated from Aphrodite, all that's left is to formalize our commitment and let the rest of them deal with it. Athena was swept away by the kiss, but then she pulled back slightly. It will be difficult. My father won't be pleased, and Artemis and Hestia may not be entirely on board, but I don't care anymore. Athena exclaimed firmly, embracing Hephaestus tightly. Now you and my children are the most important. Hephaestus looked at her tenderly. No matter who opposes us. I just know that I want to be with you, Athena, no matter the consequences. A smile lit up Athena's face, and her eyes shone with excitement. Then let's be together, Hephaestus. They spoke in unison. You and I, together forever. Then Athena took Hephaestus's hand. I think we should return to the party hall, Athena suggested with a mischievous smile, anticipating everyone's reaction when they discovered the truth about their relationship. End of story. Coming soon, a continuation.
If you're interested in another part, support this video and subscribe.